10 years ago, the Hornet F7C was the definitive civilian brawler and dogfighter in Star Citizen, with an iconic profile and performance to match. Wind the clock forward 10 years, and the updated and upgunned Mark II model of the formidable fighter is available in-game. I'm Forrester, and this video will review the currently flyable Anvil F7C Hornet Mark II, which is described on the Star Citizen website as a medium fighter. If you've seen other ship reviews on this channel, then you'll be right at home with this video, which follows the same format. It's split into 5 sections, starting with a ship tour, assessing combat performance, reviewing handling and visibility, looking at the operating costs before finally summarising. As always, I've included timestamps in the video description in case you want to skip ahead. And if you're one of the many people watching who isn't yet subscribed to the channel, you might consider it so that you can be notified of future Star Citizen videos as they go live. And we'll start the tour of the Mark II Hornet by approaching from the left or port side. Moving around the ship, the weapons are very visible, as is the beautiful paint scheme. On the front left or port side is the area to access the pilot seat, but it's also the area where you can access the onboard inventory of the Hornet. Interacting with this left side gives a ladder which deploys down, which the pilot can then climb up into the cockpit itself. Externally in the hangar, the Hornet keeps the iconic profile of the Mark I variant. The Hornet Mark II is equipped with a variety of weapons hardpoints. In stock configuration, only the wing mounts are populated, with a size 4 weapon underslung beneath each wing. This is the notable upgun from the Mark I model, which only has size 3 ports beneath the wings. But the Mark II also has an empty nose mount which can fit up to a size 3 weapon, and the ball mount at the back with options up to a single size 4 weapon. There are a lot of different configurations for the nose and ball mount owing to the Hornet being such a legacy fighter. By way of missile armament, the Mark II carries 8 size 1 missiles only, with no option to upgun those in patch 323. That is a trade-off from the Mark I, which carried more missiles and potentially up to a larger size too. Defensively, the Mark II carries 2 size 1 shield generators, which is fairly standard for a medium fighter. Putting all of that together, and assuming the empty weapon slots are filled out, you get a hard-hitting fighter, relatively durable against other fighters, and capable of holding its own in a fight. It's particularly satisfying to be in a furball against many smaller fighters and stringing together kill after kill with the weapons loadout. Experienced Hornet pilots will appreciate the heavier firepower, but the feel of the ship in the combat is much the same, which is a good thing. Visibility in the Hornet is good, with a cockpit-style canopy up front offering good views to the sides and above. Sure, there are some cockpit struts as you might expect with a traditional ship, but given how fast the Hornet can move, it's not really an issue. And that speed is a defining factor for this fighter. As a medium fighter, the Hornet isn't quite as fast as light fighters or interceptors, but is still very quick in the melee and can move well. The SCM speed limiter settles at 235 meters per second, but with boosts can go just over 500. The ship does make a strange whirring noise when slowing down, but it seems to have no real impact on the actual flight performance of the Hornet. In a straight line, the Mark II will go up to 1,174 meters per second, which is competitive with other similar ships and matches the Mark I. If you look at the ship's statistics, the turn rate is marginally lower than the Mark I, but it's not really noticeable. The stock quantum drive is pretty slow, but unfortunately the limited quantum fuel stores make it difficult to swap out for a faster option. Running the Mark II Hornet is very cheap. Refueling is usually below 100 Alpha UEC, and restocking isn't much more, depending on whether you're firing the limited stocks of missiles or using ballistic weapons. Repairing usually isn't too expensive either, maybe 1,000 credits if you've really been hitting hard. And thankfully, the Hornet can make far more than those sums by completing combat contracts. Medium risk bounties seem to be the sweet spot, but a skilled pilot can push for more challenging situations, and either option makes a tiny profit. Some pilots might be tempted to consider using the 2SU cargo pod rather than a weapon in the ball mount, in the hopes of making some extra cash in that way in the future, but as things stand, it's really not worth the time doing so. Trading margins are minuscule, and looting destroyed ships adds a fair amount of time to the loop, which usually doesn't pay off for such a tiny cargo capacity, so focusing on combat seems to be the way to go. Starting with upgrades for the Mark II, the stock loadout really doesn't make a huge amount of sense. The store all in the ball mount provides very limited utility at the moment, and the nose mount is completely empty. So of the total firepower potential of the Hornet, effectively the stock configuration has half of it unfilled. That would be the key upgrade choice, to swap the ball mount for a weapon mount of some sort, maybe a single size 4, maybe a dual size 3 if you have that option, and then the nose mount to a gimbaled size 3 or the nose turret for 2 size 1s depending on your preference. It might also pay to swap out the ballistic weapons for something on a capacitor, depending on how long you spend away from port, and perhaps swapping the quantum drive for a quicker option, if and only if you do most of your fighting around the same planet and don't travel across Stanton. In terms of a verdict, the Mark II on paper is an improved version of the Mark I almost across the board. It has bigger hardpoints, more countermeasures, a smaller profile, and improved fuel stores. Certain loadouts reduce that advantage a little, for example an all laser loadout because the capacitor becomes the limiting factor, but generally speaking the Mark II is an upgrade over the Mark I, which is what you might expect. It does prompt the question as to why the Mark II was created as a separate model rather than simply updating the Mark I, but that's probably a question for a different type of video to a ship review. The Hornet Mark II is a competitive fighter, satisfying in the dogfight and friendly to both new players and experienced combatants. It's relatively easy to fly, comfortable to land, and can for the most part cover the running costs indefinitely by doing the combat missions it's designed for. Aesthetically, it's a bit of an upgrade to the older Hornet model, but keeps the profile of the original that makes the fighter iconic. Coming in at a price of $175, the Mark II is significantly more expensive than the original Mark I, which carried a price of $125 in most recent form, and it's hard to say that the Mark II is worth a 40% price hike. The other important differentiator is that as of patch 3.23, the Mark II is not yet available to buy in-game, and so the original model is an infinitely better model for actually being able to buy with Alpha UEC. So, in summary, the F7C Hornet Mark II is an improvement on the Mark I on paper, but at a significant price hike. That might arguably be worthwhile for those players who received the complimentary upgrade to the F7A Mark II, but for the regular F7C Hornet Mark II, it seems a heavy price to pay. Naturally, that might all change whenever we're able to buy this ship in-game. But do you agree? What do you think of the F7C Mark II Hornet? I'll be interested to read your opinion in the video comments. If you enjoyed this video, you might press the like button to help me understand what videos to make more of in future, and if you're not yet subscribed to the channel, you might like to do that too, so that YouTube knows to show you more videos like this in future. But otherwise, and as always, thank you for watching.